Hello, YouTube family. Didn't get much done today. It was cloudy, rainy. So I've been going through a lot of stuff here in my room and everything. It's something I've been wanting to talk about. If you are married, got kids, and you're thinking about divorce or getting a divorce, I have some insight into something like that. I don't, maybe I'm old school. I don't know. Maybe I don't believe in divorce because my mom and daddy divorced. But it just seems like to me, you meet somebody, you fall in love, you get married, you start a family, you got kids, and then all of a sudden, you want to destroy your kid's life as they know it. A lot of people think that it doesn't matter that much, but I'm here to tell you it has a lasting effect on kids. It did to me. My mom and daddy separated in 1951. And it was by my mama's choice. Daddy was an alcoholic. I don't know if he could have overcome that or not. But Mama left him, but she didn't just up and leave. She had somebody she was carrying on an affair with. A fellow by the name of Robert William Folks, Jr. And in later years, I found out he was a real asswipe. But they left Mother's Day, March 1950, not March, Mother's Day, 1951. That night, Daddy come home drunk. He passed out in the living room floor. Mama went and got a pillow and put under his head. I distinctly remember that. Then she left the house. Us 5 kids with Daddy. The Michael and Joe, the youngest ones, don't remember any of that. But I remember it. Carolyn remembers it, and George remembers it. And directly she come back with Robert William Folks, Jr. She had us kids gather up some of our clothes and put them in a paper bag. And then loaded us up into Bob's car, Robert William Folks, Jr. And off in the middle of the night, we took off. We didn't know what was going on. This was in Norfolk, Virginia. And we headed to Roanoke Rapids, North Carolina. She went to her mama's, my grandmother's house, and tried to get grandmother to take me, Carolyn, and George while her and Bob took off and got themselves situated somewhere else. But Grandmama told her there was no way, and she got on Mama's case. So Mama took us and went across town to my grandmother Pearson's house. This time, she didn't ask her to take us three oldest kids. She told us kids to take our bag of clothes with us, go up there and knock on the door, and she'd see us in a few days. So that's what we did. Grandmama come to the door, and all of a sudden, Mama and Bob or Robert William Folks, they tore out of there in his car, and that's the last we've seen of them for 3 years. So, I can't remember much about what I thought when that happened. I can't remember what my feelings was. But my life, as I knew it, was destroyed. No more family life. And what I'm trying to say, if you got kids, your options is very limited to what you should or shouldn't do. What I'm saying, it affected me my whole life. That may be one reason I frown on divorce when there's kids involved. If you divorce and no kids involved, go for it, if that's what you want. But if you got kids, what you do and how you do things affects those kids their whole life. It destroys that family unit. It's just, I honestly believe that if a couple that has kids, there's a good chance they can work it out. Now, here's the thing. If you're married and got kids and you're out screwing around, then I guess there's circumstances to everything as far as couples in marriage and all that. Every once in a while, somebody would say, well, I thought you'd get remarried by now. Well, no. Simple fact is, well, number two, I can't afford it. Number one, when I married, it was till death do us part. My wife died, but I'm not dead. I still feel like she's my wife. I'm married, and I'm not interested in any woman coming in and taking her place. That's just the way I feel about it. And there was times me and my wife had some problems all along. And she even told me one time, said, I want a divorce. I don't know if she meant it or not. Of course, we never got divorced. And this is a hard subject, really. It really is. I just don't see how. Well, for instance, my middle grandson met this lady, and they were together almost 4 years. Not married, but they was planning a wedding and all that stuff. And Joey, my grandson, he was working 2 jobs and going to taking college classes to get a degree, and I forget what it is. So he was busy. And he come home one day, and her name's Emma. She told him, I fell out of love with you. Just like that. And they had built a life together, and they were planning on getting married. So it was, at least they busted up before they got married. Then it would have got kind of expensive to dissolve that. In this case, he just packed his personal stuff and left. I don't really know how he felt about it, but he sure loved that girl. But there weren't no kids involved or anything. But, when my mama left like that, us 3 kids, oldest kids, got passed around to different aunts and uncles. We didn't know a home. We were acutely aware of hear people talk about, what are we going to do about Russell's kid? That's my dad. And stuff like that. And turns out a little while later, one of my aunts that I love so much, my Aunt Mamie and Uncle Jack, they wanted to adopt me. Daddy was all for that. But guess what? By that time, Mama was, everybody knew where Mama was at, and we was in contact with her and all that stuff. And Aunt Mamie wanted to adopt us. But my mama would not give up her parental rights. I don't know how she even had parental rights. She didn't want me, but she didn't want nobody else to have me. Go figure that out. So, I was 10. No, wait a minute. Yeah, I just turned 10. I didn't have nobody all my growing up years encouraging me to stay in school, encouraging me to do this and that and all that stuff, that comes with a family. Didn't have no real family ties. And after they found out where Mama was at, sometimes we were staying with Daddy, and sometimes we were staying with Mama. A lot of times we were staying with aunts and uncles. So we was passed around a lot. And back then, divorce wasn't very common as it is now. And I felt like we was the black sheep of the family. I felt like nobody really wanted us except Aunt Mamie, and Mama wouldn't sign no parental rights away for that. So I guess if they had took it to court, they could have probably got it done. But there were so many things. I feel like I got shortchanged when it come to parents. All my aunts and uncles on my daddy's side, well, on my mama's side too, were great people, successful people, educated people. But not Daddy. Not his family. We weren't educated. We weren't encouraged to do nothing. One time, when Daddy found out I was trying to smoke, and he said, well, if you're going to smoke, you got to buy them. You got to pay for them. When he found out I was wanting to quit school, he didn't encourage me not to quit school. He encouraged me to get a job, which I did. So it was just a lot of things. I feel like I was really shortchanged. Now, people get out and they get married, they have these kids that really ain't got no business getting married or having kids. I think there ought to be a law that you couldn't get married and have kids till you reach somewhere in your 30s, when at least you had a little bit more wisdom about life and stuff. But no, Daddy, I mean, heck, my 16th birthday, you know what he gave me? A whore. He took me to a whorehouse. I didn't partake, but that was just the kind of person he was. And he was an alcoholic to the day he died. And he died by his own hand. I guess he just gave it up and got tired of fighting that alcoholism. My mama, she was a real trashy lady. She had an affair with one of Daddy's brothers. And maybe another one, I don't know. When I was in the military, every month they withheld $37.50 to buy a $75 bond, savings bond. In other words, you pay $37.50 for it, and in 7 years, that $37.50 savings bond is worth $75. But I didn't get the bonds; they got sent to my mama. And after 6 years, when I got out of the military, I wanted my savings bonds. Well, there won't no savings bonds. She's been cashing them every time she got them. She cashed them in. Because it had her name on it and mine. Didn't have no savings bonds. And they was coming up, but she'd have kept them like she's supposed to. They was coming up on the time they was going to be worth $75 each. So that's the kind of mama I had. One time, my stepdad was punching me in the forehead, trying to make a point to me. And I don't know what come over me, but boy, I hauled off and punched him. And Mama jumped up, grabbed a frying pan, and chased me down and hit me on top of my head with that dang frying pan. And she liked to use the belt. Now, when she went off with that man, she took Michael and Joe, my youngest brothers. They were babies with them. Then her and Bob had 3 more kids, Robert, Donna, and Ira. And I felt kind of close to Donna, but Robert and Ira, not so much. But what I'm saying, if you're married, you got kids, my gosh, hit the pause button. Think about it. See if there's any way possible to work it out and not destroy your children's life. Now, I'm not saying that all children turn out bad or something in a broken family, but I'm saying it puts hard things. They miss out on a lot. I always liked coming home before I was 10, out playing, coming home, supper was on the table, and we all sit down as a family. We didn't go off to the living room to eat or something. We sit down at the table. And Daddy would ask you, but before he asked a blessing, he would say, stick. And that means stick your head down. He always said that. Stick. He said the blessing. We ate our meal. And me and Carol, we never had to do the dishes after that or anything. But when we got older and we were staying with Mama and her husband, each night, me and Carolyn had to wash and dry the dishes. One of us would wash, the other one would dry. And then the next night, we switched it around, the other one would wash and the other one would dry. We always wanted to dry. We didn't like to wash the dishes. And a lot of times, we had to cook supper because Mama was working second shift at King Edward Cigar Factory. And me and Carolyn had to fix supper. And there wasn't no sitting around the table. It was just grab it and go wherever you wanted to go. And most nights what we fixed was a can of beans and something called codfish. It was in a can. It come out in a roll, and you sliced it, and you fried patties of codfish. But it was minced codfish. It wasn't like whole fish fillets or anything. I hated them nights. And Mama She cheated on every husband she ever had. She cheated on Daddy. She cheated on Bob. And that one resulted in an illegitimate child, my youngest half-sister, that I found about 6 or 7 years ago. And my second stepdad, J.W. McCullough, she cheated on him. So I got a lot of bad feelings about that. But what I'm saying, try to work it out if you got kids. If you don't have kids, you want to split up, go for it, you know? But it does a lot to a child to come from a broken home. It does a lot. So it's just, now it affected me and George the most. Carolyn, I don't know why. She acted like it wasn't no big deal. She still does. But you know, when Mama left that Mother's Day in 1951, and we was in the back of that car listening to her and Bob talking, discussing what they were going to do with me, Carolyn, and George. And me and George like thinking, are they talking about killing us? We didn't know what to think. But they got rid of us that night. Throwed us away like trash. But it's just, my gosh, your kids is so important. And I think about so much of that going on. Now, I'm the only child my mother had that never had a divorce, never divorced his wife or spouse. All of them, all 9 of them, all 8, there was 9 of us. But those 8 all had a divorce. And this one rascal, Michael, he got married, and him and his wife, they had a daughter. They decided to get a divorce. And guess what? They weren't fighting over who got the child. Neither one of them wanted that child. They gave that child up for adoption. Then he comes back years later and decides he wants to get a relationship with that daughter. I don't know how that worked out, but if I'd have been that daughter, I'd have told him where to stick it. My brother George, he had 2 children by his first marriage and 3 children by his second marriage. And it affected them first two, all their life. Joe, he had 3 children But he was divorced and married. I think he'd been married 3 times. But he never abandoned. Well, yeah, he did there to last. He did, and he was a Vietnam combat wounded veteran. Robert, been married twice. Donna, been married 3 times. Carolyn, been married 3 times. Joe was married twice, I think. Carol, that youngest illegitimate child that Mama gave up for adoption in '64, she'd been married twice. And she had a hard life. She was one Mama put up for adoption. She had a good parents, but she had a lot of problems. She's doing great now. But people, if you got kids, you can't make decisions based on how you and your wife. That shouldn't be the only thing you consider. You need to consider them kids. That's just the way I feel about that. I sure wished I'd have had a home life when I was growing up. I sure do. Anyway, folks, that's my story tonight, and I'm sticking to it. I will see you in the next one. See ya. GoPro, stop recording.